Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this 4-part series that I'm doing here over on my channel. And we are working through this very beautiful white fur dog portrait from start to finish. And last week we worked on the dog's ears. And then this week we are going to be working on the dog's kind of forehead and this area of the dog's face, including those really beautiful brown eyes. So just as a little housekeeping reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to go back to part 1. That is where you will be able to catch up on the dog's ears. You'll also hear about the supplies that I'm using, and you'll also be able to grab the printable outline and the reference photo that we are using for this dog painting. So hit pause on this video, go back, watch part 1, and then you can catch up on the next part here. So today we are focusing in on those beautiful eyes, and that's actually where I plan to start for today's painting. If you haven't already, be sure to warm up somewhere on a scrap piece of paper. You could even kind of practice the eyes and the color, maybe watch this video one time through and then come back and do the painting part here. That is really great to do if you haven't warmed up. It always helps to warm up. It's like working out. It's like doing anything that you just need to get, your muscles and your eyes, everything kind of working together so you can properly or feel confident in painting. All right, let's move my water over on this side. I'm having trouble with the light that's casting a shadow, and I want you to be able to see this. So the eyes, I'm going to be working mostly with some smaller brushes today for the eyes, but then I'll definitely be moving back to a medium point round brush to work around this area. So if you have like a size 2, 1, even this is a 000 brush, it's going to be super helpful. So I will start with my size 0 or size 1 would be perfect. I'm going to work on first outlining the dog's eyes. This dog has a beautiful like eyeliner type of, outer edge, which is super helpful to actually paint that in first. So I'm going to mix up the Payne's Gray and Van Dyke Brown colors, and that's one of my favorite ways. As you notice, I don't have black in my palette, so this creates a really rich dark color. So now I got that mixed up all in my Payne's Gray which is fine for right now. Okay, so I have quite a bit of paint of that dark color on my brush, not so much water. Enough water that it's not going to leave a big crackly texture. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and here, let's see if I can actually zoom in. I think that would be really helpful just for the eyes, and then I'm going to zoom back out. Okay. So we have a little bit of an outline here to work from, and I am just going to start. It doesn't really matter where you start, but I am going to be working on the very top of the dog's eye. So this brush is so fine point that I don't even need to really worry about how hard I'm pressing because it's so fine. I gotta pick up more water and more paint. The smaller the brush, the less paint and water it'll hold. Which just means you just gotta pick it up a little bit more. Okay, so there's my first kind of outline for the dog's eye. And I think it needs to go a little bit thicker. So I'll just kind of work it a little bit thicker, kind of below and above that main line that I just created. If I get quiet, it's because the concentration when it comes to eyes. So I just want to get that piece in there like that. So there's that. You'll also see there's a little bit of a line, much thinner. So it comes to a point, but much thinner on the lower part of the dog's eye. So again, just gonna work my way over here. And then it has its little like tear duct corner. So you can kind of create that shape. I'll show you that. we can continue to shape this dog's eye. There's also going to be a nice dark outline to the dog's, like the outer edge of the iris. So I'll just kind of paint that in. And I also see a little bit of a line that kind of comes up on the other side of the dog's kind of iris on the outer edge of it. So that is all I did right there. I am now going to let this one dry. And again, I could see that we need to probably make this thicker, but until I get to the other one, I don't want to do too much. So working with that same dark color we were working with before, the Payne's gray and the brown mixed together. So this eye is, it's not looking exactly straight at the camera, so it's going to be a little bit of a different shape. And it's almost like it's getting kind of covered up. Not quite a 3/4 view at the camera, but enough where we cannot paint the entire same shape that we just painted. So there's kind of a half. Be sure to be looking at your reference photo too, so you can kind of watch what I'm doing and then look at the reference photo, give yourself some time to paint. Pause, you can push pause on this video and then rewatch it however many times you need. All right, so I'm continuing down underneath the dog's eye. There's actually a nice thin outline. Again, that's why it's so nice to have these really thin brushes. Highly recommend getting some type of detailing brush like that. Okay, so pretty simple little shape there. I am just going to stop there with the dog's shaping of the eyes. I know that there's definitely more that needs to happen there, but while those dry, I think I need to find one more smaller brush. There we go. Now we can start to go back to the other eye and work on painting in the beautiful caramely brown color. So I'm just grabbing a little bit of water. The yellow ochre, here, let me pull this here. Yellow ochre mixed with our burnt sienna. That is going to be the majority of our caramely color that we are going to use. So that's all I'm going to mix up right now. And then I can go back through and drop in other colors into the eye. You'll also notice in the reference photo that right here is the pupil of the dog's eye. So I will avoid painting this color, as well as there's a lot of shine. So I will just start, I have kind of a medium amount on my brush. And I'm just going to work it down, just kind of painting like little circles and kind of like that. And then we will also do the same for the other one. Again, I did not pick up more paint. And if the outer edge of your dog's eye starts to bleed in to the brown that you're painting, no big deal. I think that also looks really nice, unless you just have way too much water and you can't control it. But if you pick up hints of it, I think that looks nice. All right. So super kind of orangey brown color, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually going to get rid of all the paint and water on my brush. Oh, that's my own dog in here. He's hanging out with me in my studio today as I'm recording this. So I'm going to just take my brush and start to kind of just go back over that same brown that we were just painting. And I'm going to let those areas dry. You'll kind of notice I left this area white and some of this area white, and that's because there is some shine there, and I will go back through and just kind of add in some dark areas. This area right here definitely needs to be filled in So I'll just take my brush and see if I can kind of fill in with the colors around it since they aren't fully dark yet, or fully dry yet. Okay, so then once that brown in the iris area is dry, that's when we can start to go back through and add in the pupil. So I am going to work with a little bit of a small to medium pointed round brush, and we are going to work with that same color that we used on the outer edge of our dog's eye. And I have quite a bit of paint on my brush, but not a whole lot of water, so I'm able to control kind of where I want that to go. So in the reference photo, there are a lot of little white flecks of reflection. So just being really kind of slow, cautious exactly how I want to paint this in here. And I don't need to capture every single white reflection, but I do want to show some of them, and they are towards the upper side of the dog's eye here. So we'll just start to add in little dots and areas of reflection. So again, I don't have everything painted. And what I can do is then get rid of all that paint on my brush. And I can go back through and just kind of soak up some area around there just to help break up some of that really dark color. I can actually kind of show some jetting out of the dog's iris or pupil into the iris, just to show a little more texture. It is definitely darker right in here, so I could take, if I have just a very light amount of that dark color, start to fill in some of this area right here that I left open. And also can kind of shadow some of the area over here. But again, I'm going to leave some of that really nice light caramely color showing. Now I will go ahead and do the other eye, same as I did before. So I don't have a ton of water, but a lot of paint, so I can get a really nice dark color and control kind of where that color is going to sit. Starting kind of on the lower half of the dog's pupil. This one has a nice big shine on that one. So let's leave this part kind of bright, light, and open like that. And now get rid of the paint for the most part on my brush. And just kind of jet some of that color out from the pupil into the iris. Can even soak some of that up. And now don't panic if you don't really like the shapes of the reflection that you just created. I'm not sure I like mine. I think I would rather see a little bit of a divide between that big, long, just makes a little more symmetry there. And we can go back through and add the bleed proof white to highlight some of those areas that we just painted. Now we need to finish kind of this part of the dog's eye. That I am going to pick a little bit of brown and a little bit of the brown, and then the burnt sienna up top here just to kind of warm it up a little bit, and then add a little bit of our dark color, which was our Payne's Gray mixture. I have quite a bit of paint on my brush, but this is where I just kind of want to, it looks like a really dark brown, just to help outline that part of the dog's eye. And over here, it would be very helpful to kind of use that color to work around the dog's eye as well. So you can kind of see that I made this part of the dog's kind of tear duct area, corner of his eye. And then I'll also take with very, very fine strokes, very little pressure, in a out and curved out motion, working out and around the dog's eye. It's almost like eyelashes, or yeah, like eyelashes. So that just really helps to, you can really see it defined in the reference photo. So we'll just do that there. There's also some nice dark brown on the other edge, or other side of the dog's eye here. So I'm using very, very little pressure to create very fine strokes. All right, if you need to pick up some more of that dark color, and we can start to build out some of the same on this side of the dog's eye. Again, very thin, light pressure strokes, leaving little bits of white between. And there's not quite as much on this side. And let's see, there's a little bit of the hair textures in here. So I'll just paint some of those there, maybe some over here too, but we will, once those dry, go back over with this really kind of orangey tinged paint. Let's paint some that are kind of down below the eye like that. Right now we're just working on texture. And maybe some over here and down below. All right. This dark brown would be really great too if you need to add in a little bit of darkness into the dog's iris. This is where you can get a little more detailed. Don't want to make it too dark. I definitely want some of those light brown caramely colors to shine through. So I did leave a little bit there on each one. Okay, I will go ahead and get rid of all that paint on my brush. Let me back up a little bit here just so you can kind of see a little more of the painting. So now we are going to start to expand out of that dog's eye, and I'm going to continue to work with my small pointed round brush, small to medium. And I am going to mix up, I can see this mixed up perfectly in my palette over here. It is that combination, it's the same color we did up here in the ear. It's that yellow ochre and that burnt sienna up here. Kind of gives that caramely color, peachy color. And that is the color, kind of a medium amount on my brush, dab my paper towel, and that's the color that I'm going to use to work on the outside. So you will see this piece right here. You might even want to add a little bit of red to that, just to bring in a little more of the peach. Okay. And then down below, it kind of comes in a little bit. And I need to get rid of some of that paint on my brush. You really don't need much at all. I might even go back through and soak some of that up. And then I'm going to run it right over this part and then kind of down the dog's eye and snout area there. This won't look quite so stark as it does right now, because once we get our other colors in, I'm just using the same amount of paint that I have, whatever is left on my brush, very little, just to kind of paint that eyebrow there. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side. I did enjoy having some of that red in with that brown, or that burnt sienna and that yellow ochre mixture. So just a little bit, gonna dab my paper towel. Start down here where it looks to be kind of the darkest area here. And I'm just going to paint down there. And it does fade, so I'll just put a little bit there, and then I can wet my brush, smooth it out. And then, but first I'm going to come back up and around the eye here. Okay, I know that looks a little bit funny. I'll just get rid of all that paint on my brush. And now my wet, damp brush, I'll just take it and just kind of run it around and smooth out some of those areas. Can even add whatever excess paint I have on my brush right above here to add in that little same eyebrow effect. Yeah, smooth it down and around this dog's eye. The best thing about this 100% cotton paper and cold press style is that you can kind of go back through and smooth it out, even if you think it has dried. Just activating it again with water, you'll be able to smooth it out a little bit more or lighten it or whatever. That's why I really, really love this paper. All right, if you lost any color like I did, I just picked up a little more of that reddish brown and put it over there again. All right, already loving this dog's eyes. They are so pretty. Okay. Taking a quick little break to look at the dog's eyes to see what needs to be done. There might be some areas that need a little bit more depth and color or darkness around them, and I can kind of see underneath the dog's eye could be a little bit darker. So that to me looks to be kind of like a brown and a Payne's gray, that dark gray mixture. So if you have something like that on your palette, great. And I don't want a whole lot on my brush, just enough to kind of paint right underneath it, just that little swipe. And on this side as well. We want it lighter than the outline that we created for the dog's eye, so that can kind of stand apart. Okay, great. So now let's start to work on some of the structure that's around the dog's eye and the face. I'm going to switch back to about one size bigger, just something a little bit bigger of a brush. And I'm going to start over here. And there's kind of this cheekbone area. This is going to be actually that same grayish brown mixture that we've been mixing up. So the Van Dyke brown mixed with the Payne's gray, and very light amount of it. So mostly water, a little bit of paint. Dab your paper towel. So what you don't see on the outline is this little, like, it's from the dog, kind of like smiling area there. So I'm just painted one little outline so I can kind of know where that piece is. I'm going to get rid of some more paint on my brush by adding water and dabbing my paper towel. And I will continue to smooth that up towards the ear we already painted. Okay. Pick up a little bit more of that paint. And again, there's kind of like a nice little ridge line right here on the dog's side of its eye. So that piece right there looks like it could be darker kind of down right underneath this part of the edge here. So I'll just add a little bit more there. And this part we already painted with the ear. If we layer another transparent layer over it, it should darken it just like it did there. And let's see. There is now another little eye bone structure that creates a shadow. So this part of the dog's face kind of coming down to where we painted this peachy line there. You can see in the reference. So always making sure that we're kind of looking at our reference photo and how far down some of these shapes are. So there's that piece there. I'm using that same grayish color. And then there is a smile bone structure. So this piece kind of comes down and around that smile there. So I just painted that in right there just so I know exactly where that line is. A lot of the times with white dogs, I do not like to paint in some of those lines. Otherwise, sometimes you can't disguise them enough in the middle of your painting. So that's kind of why I don't like to paint some of those. Okay, so now we have that piece. I'm just going to get rid of some of that paint on my brush, and I will use the side of my brush to just kind of fill in some of this area here. So I don't have a whole lot of paint on my brush, but you can just kind of see that I left some white here, but then added in a little more color there. So I don't want to get too far down towards the mouth here. I'm going to focus on that area in the next video, next week. So right now we're just kind of doing that far, and I'll grab more of that grayish brown that I like to use. So it's the Payne's Gray and the brown. Dab my paper towel. And this is also going to help define some hairs. So I have probably more than I want on my brush. So I'll dab my paper towel, and I'm just painting little strokes of hairs, as you can see there. And that's actually darker than I wanted. So I'm gonna wet that paper towel, or wet my brush, dab my paper towel, and I am gonna go back through. You can even grab water and just run it right over that paint. It's going to pick up colors from the paper that you already laid the paint down on, and then it'll smooth them out into other areas. But if you need to pick up more paint, that's what I just did. And now I'll start to work from where this little eyebrow thing is here, and work in curved like motions here, working in the direction of the hair, and just start to paint some of those hairs. Still leaving as much white of the paper as I can in some of these brightest areas. But the thing with white dogs is that the majority of the painting actually does have color to it. It's just a matter of leaving those bright white highlights, but then also being sure to paint in those darkest darks. Okay, continuing on. Again, let's just kind of lighten that grayish color that we've been working with, kind of make it a little bit more brown, creamier color. Oops, I grabbed the wrong color. So that's the Payne's Gray. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit more of our brown. So it has more brown than Payne's Gray, definitely looks more brown. And then dab my paper towel, and that's the piece that I'd like to start kind of like right here, outside of the dog's nose, leaving a little bit of white here. And that'll help to define the structure of that face right there. So again, we don't need to paint every single hair. And I will grab that same paint color, very, very small amount of it, and continue on this side. And kind of painting out like we did before with short, thin strokes. All right. The dog's face is getting the light source from this side, so it is going to remain much lighter, brighter on this side. But we do need to show a little bit of depth and structure, so I picked up a little Payne's Gray to add to our brown. Dab my paper towel, and I am just going to come on over here. There is a little bit of a shadowy bone structure there, and it kind of comes down there into the dog's face. And also don't forget that the paint colors will dry lighter. All right, so there's that piece. And we need to kind of do the same thing with this grayish brown color. And let's just go ahead and define kind of that smile down here, just so we can kind of get a reference of where everything is. And then let's see, there is not much shadowy areas here. So I painted a few of that line, and then I'll dab my paper towel and get rid of some of that paint and just work at kind of smoothing some of that out. Using whatever little paint I have on my brush. Top here, again, it is so, so light. So do not panic if you are barely putting any paint on the paper. And if you put too much, just be sure to grab more water to try and soak it up. Okay. A little more brown into that mixture. And let's just paint a few little hairs come down the center of the dog's face. You can kind of see that in the reference photo. I just know from painting so many dog portraits that, you know, that's kind of where the hair goes up and splits out. So we'll just add a little bit there. And I'll take that same amount of paint that I have on my brush, maybe pick up a little bit more. just to help show a few hairs up here, but I am going to leave the majority of this light and bright. All right. And a nice way too is that if you just take a little bit of water, you can start to just kind of glaze over some of those areas that are those bright white areas if they look way too contrasted. If you don't want that, I just take a little bit of water and run it right over top. Okay. So I am going to leave this area all for the next week's painting. I just wanted to get through some of the area up here by the eyes, and I know that it's going to make so much more sense to you guys once we get through the mouth. And then on week 4, we are going to pull the whole painting together. So that's when we'll go back through and see, oh, maybe this part needs a little bit more layers and to be a little bit darker, because I can kind of tell already it needs to, but we don't need to do that quite yet until we see the whole painting kind of coming to life and to kind of come together. And then at that point too, the bleed proof white is going to make it look so realistic. So I'm very, very excited to share all that with you guys in an upcoming video. So stay tuned, and I hope you truly enjoyed today's paint with me session, and I will see you all next week.